Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our final panel for our Speak to Power Forum. I'm Alice Wilkerson, Executive Director of Strong Future Maryland, and we're really excited to be sponsoring this really great event. We have had two tremendous panels, Wednesday night, one this morning, and I'm excited to kick off this discussion for our final session. I'd also like to thank one more time all of our co-sponsors who helped make this possible. Delegate Brooke Learman, Delegate Mark Corman, Senator Will Smith, John King for Governor, State Innovation Exchange, Maryland Center for Economic Policy, Maryland Chapter of the Sierra Club, Chesapeake Climate Action Network, Martina Hazelton, Beth Tomasello, March for Our Lives Maryland, and HeartSmiles Maryland. Thank you so much for your support. And thank you once again to the Race Thing and Community and Law in Action for partnering with us to make this event possible. Everyone who is attending in the audience, please take a moment to introduce yourselves and say hello. Then we'll be holding questions until after the panel is done. And then I'm going to kick it off to Ray Conaway, our moderator for this panel. Ray serves as the interim executive director of Community Law in Action, which develops young people to be leaders by connecting them to opportunities to amplify their voices, cultivate their skills, and actively participate in the process of positive community change. Ray, we are so honored to have you join us this morning, and I'm looking forward to this conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alice. As am I. I'm very excited this morning to be with these amazing youth leaders, and thank you all for creating this space for these young people to advocate and share their voice. Like Alice said, I'm Ray Conaway, the interim executive director of Community Law in Action. It's my great fortune to be with you all virtually this Saturday morning for this awesome panel where we're going to talk about some really important things. And what's going to make it even more important is that we have some very insightful young people who are going to guide our conversation. And I have the great fortune of introducing them just now. I want to first introduce Sid, who is the policy director for Maryland's March for Our Lives. Kam Moses, who is a youth advocate with HeartSmiles. Kam is a freshman at the historic Spelman College in Atlanta, Georgia. Nikhitha, who is the president of the Montgomery County organization Students for Change. And Antonio Young, who is also a member of HeartSmiles. Thank them so much for joining us this Saturday morning. I'm super excited to be with all of you. Sid, I want to start with you, and I want to start off talking about criminal justice. Criminal justice reform, it has gained a lot of momentum as both a policy and a campaign topic over the last 10 or 15 years. But it's also very broad, and it means different things to different people. My question to you, Sid, is what does criminal justice reform mean to you? And what do you think it means to young people today?
Yeah, thank you so much, Ray. So I think that's a really great question. And I think especially for young people, it affects them a lot because as we see a lot in the news, we see a lot of incidents where people are being affected by injustices in the criminal reform system. So we look upon ourselves as a person of color. I see myself looking at the things that happen on, what I see on the TV or what I see in the news. And I see like a lot of instances where people of color are being racially profiled just because of the system that's currently, in place. So I think a lot of that really comes to what I think criminal justice reform means to me, which is making sure that those racial injustices that we see always, occurring, whether it's in the justice system, whether it's in like the courts, the law, whether it's how people are persecuted and prosecuted and charged with crimes and those injustices, I think that's a lot of the issues that we need to aim to alleviate currently in the system. And I think with that, I would really love to open it up to other people because I think it's definitely a great way to get that conversation started.
Yeah, absolutely. You make some really important points. I want to allow some of our other panelists who would like to chime in the opportunity to do so now. So if you want to, if Kam or Nikhitha or Antonio, if you wanted to chime in on that piece about what does criminal justice reform mean? What does the future of that look like to you?
Well, me personally, first off, I feel as though it's that like in terms of criminal justice being reformed, I feel as though it's like the police should be. I feel as though it's that the police system should take more of our feelings into consideration, or like just being able to put themselves in that person's shoes, or trying to see the bigger picture of somebody's crime, or what happened, or what could have caused the person to do it. Because as people say, you never know what's going on in a person's life unless you really ask them. So I feel like if the police actually took time, like I feel like police actually took time out of their day, or like out of just like, I don't really like out of their hour, just to ask the person what's going on so they could put themselves in their shoes. I feel as though the police system or justice system wouldn't get as much heat as people give it nowadays.
That's a fantastic addition. You know, if what I hear from you saying is that if we have law enforcement who understands the communities that they're serving in, we can at least attempt to start making, you know, some inroads. Because a lot of the issues that we see, from what I hear, is that people, members of law enforcement don't understand the lives that young people experience. They don't understand some of the distrust that they have. And so just taking, like you said, 1 hour out of the day, 1 hour out of your shift to just have the opportunity to sit and talk with a young person about what they're experiencing. And perhaps it's just getting an idea of how school's coming along or whatever. That's a fantastic thought. Nikhitha, Cam, did you want to chime in on this?
I actually wanted to, excuse me, I actually wanted to chime in, and I think criminal justice reform means to me, basically actually having it be justice. I feel like in a lot of the systems that we see today, they're for the, you know, the majority. Well, what they say is the majority of like white people, but I think what it would look like is it being justice for everyone, people of color, in all aspects. And like I don't know if anyone else have ever read Our Prisons Obsolete, but just having it be where, you know, it's not where it's a whole bunch of like racial profiling and things like that. And it's actually friendly interactions, like where we don't have to see like on Instagram or Twitter, things like, you know, police slamming youth down, or older people down on the ground, like with their face, like touching the concrete and things like that. Actually having a system that is just, and of course people do things or commit crimes, but people don't necessarily have to be like physically harmed. It could be a different or a smoother process when going about that. So I just think about like the historical part of these systems and what they were made, started as, such as like police being started as like slave catchers, like way back then. And now it's like, it's still police brutality and everything going on. So I would prefer it to actually be justice for all people, and like similar sentences for people of all colors.
Cam, I want to continue the conversation with what you said. You brought up some really important pieces about, you know, the injustices in a police department, everything. My question to you is, you know, the conversation about police and policing, that has also changed more so in the last 2 years, with young people really leading that charge, leading that demand for police reform. What do you see as the role of law enforcement in our community?
Right now I see it's really a major disconnect between police and youth. Like I don't think, like Antonio said, it's not enough time where they get to like disconnect as far as just having a simple conversation or just figuring out what we do as youth. And I feel like maybe just figuring out different ways that, you know, police can come to the schools. Like I know when like my parents and things were growing up, they would have like this friendly policeman come, and like he was known like all across the neighborhood. But nowadays, like the way that we see, you know, police is like, I want to be on like my best behavior when I'm around you. Like I don't know what you're capable of and things like that. So I want police to have more of a goal of connecting with the community, because it's some people that's really just put into the community and know nothing about what's going on. They don't know the families that have been in the neighborhood for years and things like that. So when they interact with youth or adults, they don't have any understandings of what's going on in the neighborhoods to know how to actually or accurately treat them. So I would want there to be more connection, maybe them being in the schools, maybe them connecting with more organizations, and maybe them being a little bit more transparent about the roles that they actually want to play in the community. Like if we had an understanding of what their goal was in the community and we share our goals of what we want in our community, then maybe we can come to like a compromise or a negotiation of what that actually looks like, because we don't have enough conversations for us to build connections.
Yeah. I want to open it up to anybody who wants to contribute to that. Kam gave some really important points about her thoughts on what policing and law enforcement, what role they should play in our community. I want to open up to anybody who wants to contribute to that question. Go ahead, Antonio.
So wait, can you guys hear me nicely?
Yep, we hear you great.
All right. So like I wanted to like what Kam was saying, I wanted to speak on that. Well, I also had a question about it. Like, do y'all think like this is like I was just thinking about this, but like, do y'all think if we were like if we were to not like send like say like say we were to make a video, right? About say we were to make a video or like a bunch of people make a video about how they feel about like the police systems and how the police treat us as people, but also sometimes treat us based off of our color. Like if we were to make a video and tell them how we feel about how they're treating us with honest feelings and our opinions, and we were to send that to them, do y'all think that that could possibly leave an impact on them to make them possibly change and reform their system?
I feel like anything can make a difference as long as it's enough people behind it. I'm a firm believer that there's power in numbers. And I know oftentimes like initiatives that we have in communities, all of our communities don't come together often enough. And I feel like if there was a collaboration amongst a whole bunch of organizations or a whole bunch of youth advocacy, then we could definitely make an impact. But if it's only a couple people doing it, say to say, I don't think it would make an impact, because, sometimes the videos or the initiatives don't go to don't get in the right hands. So I feel like if they were to get in the right hands, then maybe it can make a change. But unfortunately, when it's only a little bit of people saying anything, it gets clouded by other things or other priorities that they have. And sometimes that just isn't the priority.
Right.
That's great. That's a great question, Antonio. Nikhitha, I want to get you to chime in on something not necessarily related to the specific law enforcement that we have in our community, but student resource officers. Earlier today, the Strong Futures Maryland panel talked a little bit about school resource officers, and the very interesting debate that's ongoing about SROs. The debate of should they stay or should they go. I want to get you to chime in on what has been your experience advocating for school environments that are free of school resource officers.
Yeah, of course. And first of all, I want to thank you all so much for being able to let me in on this panel, and also to the other panelists who have been talking about criminal justice. I think in terms of Montgomery County, which is the county that I live in, we have been able, this year was the first year that we were able to open without student resource officers, or student resource officers specifically, which was a really great achievement for us on part of the students. But I think what was so interesting about that is that it took an incredible amount of student pushback in order to get that to happen. I believe last year there was a month last year where there was a bill about removing SROs within our county council, within our Board of Education, and within the Maryland General Assembly, all within the kind of the same timeline. And there were over like 60 students testifying against SROs at each one. And it's very interesting to see how there's so many students of color, so many Black students, and actually the majority of students who are telling adults, who are telling legislators, who are telling school principals that SROs there's no empirical evidence that suggests that SROs work within schools to support student safety, and they're contributing to a much more negative student environment. and how much pushback there is on students saying that and talking about their experiences with SROs and talking about, I've heard, especially in my county, how many, students of color have had siblings and younger siblings as much as elementary school or middle school become much more negatively impacted by SROs. Um, it's quite interesting to see how much pushback there is just for students expressing their opinions on this and how much students have to advocate to get, their opinions within policy. And I think the SRO debate is kind of a good example of one of those, because it's practically all students telling adults that SROs do not work for us. They don't work for anyone. They contribute and help funnel students within the school to prison pipeline. They are, making some students afraid to come to school, and how much pushback there is from adults being like, no, they're for your safety, when, there are all these students telling them that they're not for our safety. They're not positively affecting any student more greatly than they are negatively impacting the majority of students. So, yeah.
Yeah, fantastic contribution. I want to a little pivot the conversation just a little bit to an issue. Sid, I want to give you a hypothetical here. I'm going to say, if you could have one wish, Sid, what would be your wish that would help decision makers, policymakers to understand about the challenges that young people are facing when we talk about housing insecurity?
So I guess a lot of that would be empathy. And like, I think the biggest way to understand what situation people are in is, not putting yourself in that situation, but imagining what you would be like, what your thoughts and, what your beliefs would be like in that situation. So policymakers, legislators, all the time, they don't really understand a lot of the issues that they advocate for. And what they do for that is that, they go out and outreach to people. But I think, the target audience of who you're outreaching to really matters. And I think actually asking people who suffer those housing insecurities, actually going out and talking to people in like neighborhoods where there's not sufficient resources, sufficient housing resources, that gives a lot of opportunity for growth and a lot of opportunity for, real impact and like correct legislation to be passed and meaningful and impactful legislation to be, passed and supported. And I think getting those opinions in the first place is the biggest step into making those like lasting changes. So I think if I had one wish, it would be that these policymakers, legislators, they had the empathy and they had, the drive to go and talk to those individuals within those situations so that they could get a better understanding of what's necessary for those legislative issues that they're focusing on.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Hey, Antonio, I want to jump to you next. I'm really familiar with all of the great work that HeartSmiles does. You guys have a fantastic leader in Miss Joni, just awesome. I want to ask you, what do you feel young people most need today from their government to ensure their long-term success in life, meaning that they have an ability to thrive economically without having to deal with debt? They can care for the health of themselves and the health of their families, and they're free from violence, free from, experiences of discrimination. What do you think the government can do to ensure that for young people?
In my personal opinion, I feel like the government should, because I feel as though the government could probably start programs for children, like to help them, like I feel like the government should start programs for children from like my age, like 14 to at least like 21, in my opinion, because I feel as though if the government were to start funded programs for children and help them get on their feet to a certain extent, where they could get to a point and take care of themselves, or if they're in a relationship, they're like their significant other or their family members who need help. If the government, if the government were to make those type of, like, I can't think of the word, but if the government were to put kids in those type of areas or atmospheres, then kids or the youth will probably feel more more successful, because if they have that extra help, because kids will sometimes say that they don't have all the help that they need, but if the government were to supply them with the help they needed, kids are able to be successful without having to worry about debt, because sometimes there are some young adults out here that are still paying off their debts because they don't have enough money or can't really afford to pay it off at that certain amount of time. But like I said, if the government were to put these kids and young adults into some type of program for 14 to 21 and get them on their feet at least, then I feel as though that not only would things be 10 times better, but youth would be like 100 times more successful.
Yeah, I want to allow some of our other panelists to chime in on that question. Anybody want to add to that?
I would love to chime in. I definitely agree with what Antonio said, but I also feel like if in those laws or those bills or just in the thought process that people in the government thought about these things, but I think if they value youth as youth leaders or leaders in general, then I think things would be a lot different. So I know a lot of times, like, even when it comes down to like things for school and like signing paperwork and stuff, like you have to have your, your parent or someone, sign off on it. But like, I feel like if they knew that youth could make their own decisions, it's not like, um, you know, we're just like children. Like, I know a lot of times, like even in Black households, like they'll say stay in the child's place and things like that, even when like wanting to give your opinion or chime in or something that you strongly believe in. But I feel like if in law or in government, like Ms. Joni always tells us, like as heartbeats, that like we're youth leaders, like we're on a panel right now, trying to advocate for things that we believe in. And we've been on like other things, to actually advocate and believe in, so that we believe in certain things. But if the government took the time out to like connect with some of these youth and just see like all of the things that we're capable of, like Nikhitha or Sid or Antonio, myself, and a lot of other youth that are from Maryland, then you could see that we're youth leaders, we're able to make decisions by ourselves. Of course, we might need someone to advocate for ourselves, like a mentor or something like that. But we're definitely able to be capable of making our own decisions, and we care about the same things that they care for, but it might just be like in a different way.
Cam, I want to stick with you for a quick second. Both you and Antonio are a part of HeartSmiles, and I gave HeartSmiles their praise and thanked them so much for their sponsorship of this event. But aside from outside of the government, you guys are part of HeartSmiles. There are other programs that are doing great things. Aside from systems outside of the government, what do you think are other things that are critical for young people to be able to have access to and to tap into so that they can thrive?
I definitely feel like the educational system is something that a lot of, well, that are critical for youth to tap into. Growing up, my mom and my dad always like instilled in me like education was kind of like my way out. So like trying to avoid that debt and things like that, but not educational and the educational system in the traditional sense. So normally you probably would think about like school and things like that, but honestly, the system that we had, maybe from my experience, Baltimore City Public Schools doesn't necessarily give all of the education that we need. So like the true history behind things or talking about like youth leadership and things like that, those are things that we don't talk about in school, and life skills and things like that. Once we get out of school, some of those things about, financial literacy and things, those aren't classes that we have to take, or those are not requirements that we have to take. And sometimes I know a lot of times from the youth that I talk to, and just from my personal experience, it's like we're taking these classes, but what is this going to amount to later on when I'm an adult or I'm a young adult, I'm out of high school? What is this going to amount to? What am I going to do with it? So thinking about like having those youth organizations or those community organizations serve as educational tools that teaches all of the things or all of those gaps that the school system is creating in order for us to truly thrive once we reach adulthood.
That's fantastic. Nikhitha, I want to come to you. What do you think our elected officials and our advocates can do with, not for, young people who are, living in underserved communities to ensure that they feel empowered to advocate for themselves, for their loved ones, their communities, their schools?
Of course. So this is also something that we were talking about in the previous panel, that a lot of the times um, officials and legislators will want student voices to participate and to, inform them about the decision-making process and what avenues they should take in terms of student opinions and stuff on policy. But I think a lot of officials don't really focus on what is accessible to undeserved student communities. If you're thinking about like high school or college students, most of them are, in terms of, I'm in high school. So, in terms of the average high school student has school from 7 to 3 or something like that. If you have a meeting for students at 1 p.m., what student is going to attend that meeting? If you, obviously, college students and high school students will have jobs to, either support themselves or their families. If you're not, giving students an incentive to provide their opinions and to advocate, how are they going to be able to do that themselves when they have all these other priorities going on in their lives that might take precedence over that? So I think it's really all about, making things accessible. And the other thing, like if a student is part of a Spanish speaking family or a family that doesn't, or a household that doesn't speak English, and all of your materials and all of your surveys are in English, how are you going to be able to reach out to them? So it's all about, first of all, giving students a seat, but then also removing all of those barriers that might not allow them to be in that seat of, being involved within student government and advocating among themselves. So, having meetings that are at later times so students can attend them, giving students an incentive to be there, providing accessible ways for students to be involved. That would, make students, first of all, more capable of advocating for themselves in terms of government. And then also give all students, those students who have other burdens among themselves, who are trying to support their families, other people that, are dependent on them, who have schoolwork, who are trying to, apply for college, trying to give them that equal opportunity and that equal seat compared to those students who might not have those burdens. So it's I think the key in that is really just being as accessible as you can as an official or a legislator to remove those obstacles and those barriers in order to reach those undeserved communities, underserved communities, excuse me.
Yeah, fantastic points. Hey, Sid, a lot of this discussion is focused on what people could improve about how they interact with youth advocates. Do you have an example you can share with us of a positive experience that you've had in advocacy?
Yeah, of course. So I can share like a few examples of when, I felt like heard as a student advocate and as someone who's been like interning with like local legislators and stuff like that. So I guess the first positive experience I've had with someone is when, as a part of March for Our Lives, we were holding a sit-in for Representative Andy Harris's office against, his NRA policies and taking money from the NRA. And so in that process, a police officer called me just like out of safety. And normally, I would expect, well, unfortunately, what I expected was like being talked down to and all that stuff. But he called me, we had a good conversation about, safety precautions. And I think that really like made me realize that, my work as a student advocate and all the people who would be coming to that sit-in with me were respected. And I wasn't being talked down to. So that was definitely a really positive experience I had. And it made me felt like I was, respected. And I think another thing is more on the legislative side, I guess, is when I worked with my state senator, Katie Fry Hester from my district, I really had the option to choose what I was involved within. So I had the option to choose like which legislative paths I wanted to focus on, what things I wanted to, really advocate for, and, what legislation I wanted to work with. And giving that option to students really, I think, helps students find what they're interested in, find what they're passionate about, and also develop those passions and interests more. And it also makes you feel heard as like a student leader, because you see like people in positions giving you the opportunity to voice your opinions on those things. So I think that for legislators or for, officials who take on interns, it's really important for those interns to feel like they're being heard and to feel like their work, their experience, the time that they're putting in for your office is something that's beneficial to them. So I think giving that option, just like I had, is really useful. And I think that's something that I think helped me as a student advocate understand what my role was.
Awesome, awesome. I wonder if everybody could just chime in and share their positive experience, positive experience that you've had with leadership on advocacy. Anybody who wants to go ahead and jump in and share.
I can share. In my experience with Baltimore City Public Schools, I did say that, there are some gaps, but there are a lot of great things about Baltimore City Public Schools as well. So we had this thing and it was called Be More Me panel, and we would have like adult advocates get on and kind of share their experience. A variety of different experiences too. So it would be like authors on there, and different things like that. And they normally would always be people of color, which was really good for Baltimore City Public Schools because I know we're predominantly Black. They would share their opinions on like advocacy around youth, and things that they would want to do to help youth, and even have people like me, people that were in Baltimore City Public Schools, be moderators of the conversation, having to be very like open and honest about the things that they've done so far. That was a really good experience for me, as well as it was like a focus group that they had about how they would want schools to go, going back into school physically after the pandemic. So, everyone is mainly in school in person right now. So they were having ways of like, what things are you guys concerned about on going back to school and things like that. And it felt like it was really like open, although it was long. Because sometimes, when you add a lot of opinions, it seems really long. It felt like we were able to be open and honest about what experiences we wanted to have when going back into schools.
Awesome. Antonio, Nikhitha, you want to jump in and share your experience?
Yes. One experience that I'll never forget but always be grateful for is that I had this one teacher. This teacher doesn't go to my school anymore, but I had this one art teacher, and I had this one art teacher that will always like that, because before I knew what high school I wanted to go to, he will always tell me like go somewhere where you feel as though you fit, go somewhere where you feel as though you'll be most successful, and never go to a high school just because your friends are going to that school. Proceed where you feel as though you'll fit in and be happy. And I say that because that like not only because I was so focused on giving, even though I was so focused on giving up, he never gave up on me. He would take time out, of his day to pull me out of class. Like if I had problems with work or something, he'll pull me into a group of people that had the same problems as me, and then we will all talk about, like, say one person would talk about their problems in school, and then I would talk about how I feel about it, and they would help me, and then we would help each other through the situation. And I feel as though is that not only did he help me discover what I wanted to be as a person, but he also helped me discover what I wanted to do for me, being me as a person, but also somebody who wants to make a difference in the community, but also leave a stamp on the world. And just to add in before I finish, not on, like I feel as though that if we had more teachers like him, that not just teachers, but more people like him, people that would like take you in a small group. Because I don't really see a lot of small groups in my school. I don't really see a lot of small groups in my school, but like believe it or not, having small groups and open, safe small groups for youth actually leave a big impact on things and come out with better people and effects, even though it may take a while. But if you keep working and working on it, eventually the effect will be something that's worth more than your while.
Yeah, that is an absolutely fantastic story. Nikhita, did you want to share your advocacy experience?
Yeah, so I think one thing that's really great about student advocacy and youth advocacy in general is that sometimes in a lot of these spaces, you'll be able to find so many different like-minded people, especially like not even just in Maryland, but just, across the country. I've, been part of some discussions that, or I'm lucky to say that I've been part of calls and discussions where, there are multiple students talking about their opinions and and their experiences in advocacy all across the U.S. and different school districts and different states and stuff. And I think that that's another really powerful and positive thing about youth advocacy is that, when you're able to connect with like-minded people who, value your opinion and are also interested in fighting for the same ideals and goals that you have, and you're all, connected together to be able to achieve one common goal or theme. It can become a very powerful group and a very powerful source, and also just kind of be a very great way to connect with others, and then also a great support system as well. I've made so many friendships, and I've met so many different people with different experiences and also similar experiences to me who can relate, and I think that that's a really great thing.
Awesome. That's thank you all for sharing. I want to ask I want to ask you all another question that I'd like for you all to chime in. What's one thing that you want elected officials or older advocates to know about youth advocacy, or you want them to do differently about youth advocacy moving forward? And anyone can go ahead and start that off for us.
Um, I think I would like to kind of echo what I said earlier about just changing the way that you view youth. Like, I've had good experiences of, advocating for myself and other youth as well, but I know oftentimes adults aren't necessarily ready to change their narratives on how they see youth and how they can, you know, um, express their opinions or express things that they actually want in the systems and things like that. They don't value as much as they value other adults. And I'm not sure if they just don't see our capabilities, or maybe it's just those things that they see in society, like, youth aren't supposed to be the ones that are at the table, but I think it's actually otherwise. Like, we should still be valued just as much as other adults are, and show us that you value that, communicate it explicitly that we value you coming here or coming to this meeting, or maybe even have it be where there are a youth advisory board for each elected official or something of that nature, so we know that you're actually implementing our opinions and our desires, and we're getting those to you. You're having direct connections with us, because I know sometimes it could just be one meeting that they have, and that's how they're implementing youth advocacy, but it needs to be a continuous thing, something that's going on as the decisions are happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I kind of just wanted to add on to that. And I think, Cameron, you put a message in the chat about that as well. And I thought that that was a really great point, that like there are so many times where officials will call on youth to, to talk to them, to hear their opinions and stuff, and to, I guess, show in a much more performative way that they're listening to student opinions. And this is something that we also talked about in the last panel, that listening to student voices is just the first step. It's actually, implementing, and this is also something that Cameron said, like implementing that into policy, showing that you've, taken what students and youth are talking about, and then also making real life changes with it within, what different legislators are advocating for within policy. And I think that that's really important.
Yeah, and I think to add to that, besides listening and implementing that policy, it's very important to update your youth, who you got opinions from, and just in general, your your constituency, what you've accomplished based on, opinions that you've received. Because, if you ask a panel of students to give you an opinion and, you just tell them, thank you so much, I've heard your opinion. You want them to know that you've heard besides like just telling them, you want to show that their opinion actually had like an impact. So whatever policy that you like implemented, I think it's important to give those updates to those students just to know that their voice has been heard, just to know that the change has been made, and just to, update the community, as you should always do, on what you're advocating for, as well as what your community has been changed in a positive way. I think that's really important.
Go ahead, Antonio.
I also I wanted to say that some adults, like the adults that be bringing the youth into like how I was talking about the small groups and stuff. I also but sometimes not all adults have the right amount of patience to deal with the youth, which I don't fully blame them for. But in my personal opinion, that I would say to an adult is that when you're teaching a group of youth or young adults, that you have to learn to trust the process. Like you can't just expect that they'll get or that they'll understand what you're trying to teach them, like as soon as you teach them. Like you have to have patience. You have to, some, like, as everybody says, some people learn faster than others and some learn slower than others. That's why I wanted to say that when teaching youth, sometimes you have to give the youth time to take in what they're learning, so that way it's better for them to take in what they're learning instead of you rushing them to tell you what they learned. Because if you're rushing them, then they don't have the former information that they could give back to you. So that's why I feel as though that you should take well you that's why I feel as though you should be patient when having them in groups, or at least just take your time and not to rush the process. Because if you rush it, it could end up coming out bad and not giving the results that you were looking for when you first started.
Deeply, deeply insightful answers. I just want to ask the panel one last question, and have everybody chime in. Yeah, the work that you all are doing and this work around youth advocacy, it's pretty hard. And so the past two panels have been asked the same question towards the end, and I want to give you the same opportunity to share with us what gives you hope, and if nothing gives you hope, what keeps you motivated? And we'll go backwards. So we'll start with Antonio, then Sid, then Nikhitha, and we'll wrap up with Kam. Antonio?
Something that gives me hope that I can't stress enough is my mother. Like, when my mother is my biggest, like, number one fan. Like, I'm her number one fan. If not for her, I wouldn't be the majority of the person I am today. Cause whenever I feel like work is hard, like if I'm doing work for like HeartSmiles, and then sometimes it may feel like it's too much, I may think back to what my mom would tell me, because my mom would tell me, whenever it's too hard, just keep pushing, and then at the end of the day, it'll all be worth it. And those words always run through my head whenever I feel like I want to give up. So I just don't give up anymore, because I feel like if I give up, my mom's words would be in vain, and I don't want them to be in vain. So whenever I feel like I want to give up or I can't do it, I just do what my mom would do and just keep on going, and then pray that things get better at the end of the day, because I know if I keep doing it and I keep going, everything will be worth it.
Powerful. Sid?
Yeah, I think that was a really great answer, Antonio. And I'm also inspired by my parents. And I think another thing that inspires me and gives me hope is all the different youth organizations that are in my community. And I think that gives me hope because I see a lot of different issues being touched on. Like personally, I'm part of March for Our Lives. I see other people being part of HeartSmiles, Strong Future Maryland, all these different organizations. And I think especially the interconnectedness between them and the panels that we're running, where different people from different organizations are coming across issues as a whole, is it gives me hope that issues are being talked about, issues are being heard, and change is being made. And I think that has an impact in like our mindset, because we understand that these things are important, these things are being heard, which just gives us that additional drive to keep going and keep talking about these issues and keep asking for change and pushing for it in our communities. And I think that's something that really gives me hope.
Awesome. Nikhitha?
Yeah, I think what gives me both hope and motivation is seeing younger student advocates. I'm a senior in high school, so freshmen, sophomores, juniors who are younger than me, and also middle school students who have this same passion of trying to help their communities and being active and working and pushing to be involved in these spaces that aren't as accepting to students. And I think it's really powerful to see how much of younger generations are passionate about involving themselves in this work. And then also it gives me hope that this work will continue, so it won't just end with one generation, it'll inspire another one.
Awesome. Kam?
For me, I would say what gives me hope is when I actually feel valued. Like when I come into spaces like these and, thank you for your time and thank you for it. Like when they have specific references to something I said previously in the conversation, just to show me that they're listening, that gives me hope, because I know that although like you have a lot of power and things to bring, it's not going to happen if adults aren't a part of the team too. So a lot of times the decision makers for now, because youth will come and be decision makers as well. But a lot of times right now we're going to have to work with adults so they can actually implement the things that we have in our minds. But another thing too, besides that motivation or something that keeps me motivation, what keeps me disciplined is a lot of change that's out there that still needs to be made, and things that are going unnoticed, and we need to bring those things to light. So that keeps me disciplined, because I know like Miss Joni, she works tirelessly on a lot of different things, like even on the weekends doing her emails and things like that. Like it shows me that like she's dedicated, and like that dedication that Miss Joni has is really inspired me, like this, to be dedicated day in and day out, because it's always going to be something new or something different that we need to attend to. And sometimes people aren't going to care. So what's going to make people care? Us continuing to work on whatever issue we truly care about.
Wonderful. Well, I want to thank all of you for your amazing, amazing contributions. And I want to thank all of our Facebook audience that has enjoyed this program. Can we give our panelists some virtual hand claps for their amazing, amazing insight and contributions to this conversation? It's been so wonderful listening to all of you. And I don't know about the rest of the panelists. I hope I can, the rest of the audience, but I hope I can speak for the rest of the audience when I say our future is exceptionally bright with you all at the helm and gearing up to be the next generation of leaders and advocates. So I want to thank our Facebook audience for joining us for the past couple of days, both our panel on Wednesday and the one prior to this one. Thank you all, and please stay tuned with any future events that Strong Futures Maryland will be hosting. Thank you, Strong Futures Maryland, for giving me the opportunity to participate with these amazing, amazing young people on this great Saturday morning. Everybody have a great rest of your day, and thank you so much for joining us.